From the moment I zipped up my overnight bag, I felt it. That flutter in my chest. Half excitement, half nerves. After 3 years together, Adrian was finally bringing me home to meet his family. It wasn't like we were some whirlwind college fling. We'd made it through graduation, long-distance internships, and late nights when he was on hospital rotations, and I was stitching samples in my tiny studio apartment. Now he was a full-fledged physician at one of LA's most prestigious private hospitals. And me? I was quietly building something too, my fashion brand, piece by piece, stitch by stitch. My parents loved Adrian. He'd come to every holiday dinner, helped fix our broken thermostat without being asked, and even sat through my mom's endless photo albums. He was gentle, supportive, and always knew when I needed encouragement. So when he said, "It's time you meet my family," I felt something shift. Something permanent. I spent all week preparing. A cream silk blouse I designed myself. A gift basket filled with artisanal teas for his mom. I had to dig through old interviews just to figure out her taste. Evelyn Morgan wasn't just any mom. She was the CEO of Morgan Atelier, one of the most respected fashion product processing companies in California. She was practically royalty in my industry. Adrian never talked much about her, just that she was intense and had high standards. I figured I'd win her over. She was in fashion. I was in fashion. Maybe we'd even collaborate one day. I should have known something was off the moment we pulled into the driveway. The house was palatial, columns, trimmed hedges, fountains, but it felt cold. No one came to the door. Adrian had to unlock it himself. Inside, there was no hug, no welcome. Just his mother, perched at the kitchen island, sipping from a crystal glass, and looking me over like I was a stray dog that had wandered into her garden party. "So," she said, setting her glass down. "This is Jasmine. Not hi. Not nice to meet you." I smiled, extending the gift basket. "It's so lovely to finally meet you, Ms. Morgan. I've heard so much about you." She took the basket without a word, set it beside her without even looking inside. Then she turned to Adrian. "Can I speak to you privately?" He looked at me with that tight, awkward smile and nodded. "Just a minute." They stepped into the hallway, but I could still hear her. She didn't bother to whisper. "Adrian, she doesn't come from the right family. Her parents are modest people. A schoolteacher and a hardware clerk? Be serious." "She's built her own business," he said. "She's smart. You'd know that if you tried. She's not our kind, not polished, not bred for this life. She makes clothes, Adrian. That's not the same as real fashion." Every word landed like a slap. My fingers curled around my tote bag. I wanted to walk out right then, but I didn't. I waited until they returned. Her smile when she faced me again was stiff and icy. "You'll be staying in the guest house." "I think I'll be leaving instead," I said, standing. My voice didn't shake. My spine didn't fold. Adrian followed me out, calling my name, grabbing my wrist as I reached the car. "Please," he said, "give me time. She'll come around. I just need to talk to her when she's calmer." "You let her talk about my family like that," I said. I didn't agree with her. "But you didn't stop her either." His shoulders dropped. "I love you. Isn't that worth something?" I hesitated. It should have been enough. "Okay," I whispered. "One more chance." The next 2 months were a blur. I poured myself into work. My spring capsule line was finally taking shape. Then came the email that changed everything. A contract proposal from a Fortune 500 company to design staff uniforms for their West Coast headquarters. I screamed in my office. My assistant Tara jumped, then screamed too when I told her. This was the break I'd been working for. Years of quiet hustle, unpaid collaborations, late nights on the sewing machine, and now it was finally happening. I texted Adrian, "Big news, call me tonight." But by the end of the day, I still hadn't heard from him. Tara and I decided to grab coffee to brainstorm manufacturing partners for the contract. We headed to a small cafe downtown, and that's where everything started to unravel. I saw him, Adrian, across the street walking with a tall, elegant woman, their hands brushing. She laughed at something he said. He placed his hand on her back gently, like I had seen him do to me 100 times. Tara stopped mid-sentence. "Is that—" My heart pounded. I pulled out my phone and called him. He answered, casual as ever. "Hey babe, what's up? Where are you?" "I'm on my way to a follow-up with a patient. Why?" My stomach turned. "A patient?" "Yeah, one of my regulars." "Why?" I didn't say anything. I just hung up. Tara stared at me. He lied. I nodded slowly. And I just gave him time. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the image of him, Adrian, his hand on her back, her laugh, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Like I used to be. I checked my phone dozens of times. No texts, no calls, not even a lazy follow-up to our earlier conversation. And still, I hadn't told him I saw them. I didn't need to. He already knew what he was doing. The next morning, I showed up to my studio 2 hours early, under-eye circles and all. Tara didn't ask questions. She just handed me an oat milk latte and quietly opened our mood board for the uniform contract. We buried ourselves in work, and it helped, for a few hours, the familiar rhythm of creativity, planning materials, running fit samples, calling production partners. I almost forgot what was unraveling behind the scenes. Almost. Until she walked in. I didn't recognize Evelyn Morgan at first. She was in oversized sunglasses and a sleek designer wrap coat, trailing behind a sales associate like she owned the place, which, in her mind, she probably did. "Is this Jasmine's store?" she asked flatly, glancing around with disinterest. I stepped forward. "Yes. Can I help you?" She looked me up and down, then offered a smile so polished it hurt to look at. "Didn't realize you were still in business." I blinked. "We're expanding, actually." She snorted lightly. "Adrian never mentioned that." My stomach clenched at the sound of his name, but I kept my voice steady. "Well, he hasn't exactly been available." She ignored that. "I run a production firm, you know. We've worked with 5 major retail chains and half a dozen celebrity lines. Perhaps you've heard of Langro Textiles?" Of course I had. They were one of the top-tier producers I had secretly dreamed of working with. "I'd love to propose a collaboration," I said, choosing optimism. "We just signed a major uniform contract and we're looking to scale ethically. Your facility could be a perfect fit." Evelyn looked amused. "Oh, honey, that's adorable." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You honestly think my company would manufacture your line?" she said, stepping closer. "You make cute clothes, Jasmine, boutique pieces. But this industry isn't built on dreams. It's built on pedigree, money, and connections. None of which you have." I felt Tara shift behind me, shocked. Evelyn leaned in, just slightly. "Adrian is engaged to someone in our circle. The announcement's next week. She's elegant, educated, comes from a real fashion family." My heart stopped. No build-up, no hesitation, just a casual execution of the truth. "I thought you should hear it from someone honest," she added, pulling out a pair of sunglasses from the display, inspecting them, and then tossing them back carelessly. And then she laughed, like the whole thing was a game I'd never had a chance of winning, and left. I stood frozen. The air felt heavy. My chest was tight. Tara touched my shoulder. "Jas." But I couldn't answer. Adrian was getting married. To someone else. and I'd been nothing more than a placeholder while he waited for his mother's approval. I went home early that day. I didn't eat, didn't turn on the lights. I sat on my couch in silence, surrounded by fabric samples and untouched design mock-ups. Then, finally, I did the thing I swore I wouldn't do. I called him. He picked up on the second ring. "Jess," he said, like we were still okay. Like he hadn't just detonated my life. "I saw your mom today," I said. "She told me about your engagement." Silence. "I saw you with her too. The woman you're marrying." He sighed. "I didn't want you to find out like that." "You lied to me. She's from a family my parents approve of," he said softly, like that explained everything. "It's complicated." "No, it's not. You made a choice." "I need you to stop calling," he said. "We're not going to work out. You need to move on." Click. That was it. 3 years of love, 1,000 shared memories, dozens of whispered promises. Gone with one final breath. The next few days blurred. I was quiet, focused, but not broken. I didn't cry in the shower or play sad music or text him late at night. I worked. I met with partners, finalized pricing tiers, redrew tech packs. The uniform contract was a success, but it wasn't enough. I needed something bigger, something permanent, something they'd all see. 3 weeks later, Tara and I flew to San Francisco for a sourcing expo. While networking over lunch, we were introduced to 2 executives looking for new designers to partner with on a high-visibility campaign. When they handed me their cards, my breath caught. One of them worked for Langro Textiles, Evelyn's company, but he wasn't part of her inner circle. He was new, and as it turned out, he loved my work. "We're shifting our image," he explained. "More modern, female-led brands. I'll talk to my board if you're interested." I was interested. Very. That night, I sat on my hotel bed staring out at the city skyline, my laptop on my lap. This wasn't just a deal. This was leverage. Adrian had taken everything. My trust, my future, my heart. Now I had something of his family's business, their name, their brand. And maybe, just maybe, it was my turn. I used to believe that if you just worked hard, kept your head down, and stayed kind, the world would meet you halfway. Adrian and his mother cured me of that illusion. But I also learned something else. Silence can be a weapon, especially when you're the one holding the blueprint for someone else's empire. That night in San Francisco, I stared at my laptop, rereading the email from Victor Lang, the executive from Langro Textiles, Evelyn Morgan's company. "We're interested in collaborating with Cala Studio on a limited-run production. Let's schedule a formal proposal meeting." I didn't reply right away. I needed to think, because if I played this right, this wouldn't just be a collaboration. It would be a shift in power. Back in LA, Tara and I worked around the clock preparing the pitch. I renamed our uniform capsule series Threaded Roots, a collection that emphasized resilience, reinvention, and grounding design in identity. What I didn't say in the deck, but fully intended, was this: you can rip me out of your life, but my work will still wrap itself around your world. I wore a sleek black pantsuit to the pitch. Simple, polished, designed by me. Victor greeted us warmly in the Langro boardroom. 2 other execs sat in. Evelyn was not among them, thankfully. As I laid out our production plan, I noticed one of the VPs nodding throughout. Victor leaned forward as I presented our sustainability sourcing, packaging solutions, and digital rollout timeline. "I like it," he said. "You've thought of everything. This isn't just creative, it's strategic." That was the moment I knew. I wasn't here just because they needed new blood. I was here because they needed me. And I was going to make sure Evelyn knew that too. A week later, I got the formal email. Langro Textiles was accepting our proposal. The deal would give my studio access to one of the most respected production infrastructures in the country, including access to internal designers, distribution support, and collaborative press features. What Langro didn't realize? They were about to promote a designer who Evelyn had once told to her face would never be good enough to work with her company, and that designer now had her name on the contract. I didn't tell Tara until the next morning. When I walked into the studio, I slid the printed agreement across the table. She blinked. Langro. They signed? I nodded. Does that mean? Yes, I said. We're producing through Evelyn Morgan's company. Tara looked like she wanted to scream, and then cry, and then hug me. Instead, she grinned like fire. Let's burn the runway down. The first joint campaign was scheduled to launch with an industry mixer, an invitation-only gala Langro hosted twice a year. Designers, executives, investors, and of course, family. I RSVP'd yes, and I wore white. Not wedding white. Power white. A structured blazer dress I designed myself with sleek tailoring and a hand-sewn lapel detail that mirrored my studio's original logo. It was the kind of outfit that didn't beg for attention, but didn't ask for permission either. When I entered the ballroom, heads turned. Victor greeted me with a raised glass. "We put your look on the cover of the preview booklet," he said. "You're the talk of the night." I smiled. "That's a first." "Not the last," he replied. I hadn't seen Adrian in almost 3 months, but I saw him that night, across the room, in a gray tailored suit, standing beside a woman with perfect posture and a jawline that could cut glass. Selena Ward, the woman he left me for, and next to them, Evelyn. When her eyes met mine, she froze. Her expression didn't change, but I saw it in the way she tightened her grip on her champagne glass. I didn't walk over. I didn't need to, because 5 minutes later, they came to me. Adrian approached first. "Jasmine," he said, clearing his throat. "Didn't expect to see you here." I turned slowly. "Why? Because your mother told me I'd never be good enough to stand in this room?" He looked away. That wasn't personal. It was personal enough to destroy what we had. Selena barely looked at me. She scanned my outfit with a smirk, then leaned toward Adrian. "We should go." But Evelyn stayed. "I didn't approve this partnership," she said flatly. "You went around me." Victor stepped in from behind. "Actually, you were traveling when the final list was approved. Jasmine's proposal was the strongest we received." Evelyn smiled thinly, then looked me dead in the eyes. "This won't last." "Maybe not," I said, lifting my glass. "But it'll last longer than your son's loyalty." Her face cracked, just for a second. I turned and walked away. By the time the campaign launched, our designs had been featured in 3 digital fashion magazines and shared across Langro's official channels. Everywhere Evelyn looked, she saw my name. Every partner who once dismissed me now saw me as an equal, or better. And Adrian? He never reached out again. But I knew he was watching. Sometimes silence isn't a retreat. It's a reset. The campaign went viral within 2 days of launch. Not in the way pop stars go viral, not flashy or scandalous, just quietly powerful, elegant, unapologetically smart. A national airline picked up the design for their VIP lounge staff. A tech startup requested uniforms for their showroom teams. I even got a call from a boutique hotel chain in the Pacific Northwest. Each time someone mentioned the campaign, they said the same thing. I didn't expect something this fresh to come from Langro. That was the twist, wasn't it? It didn't come from Langro. It came from me. They just had to put their name on it to survive. A week after the campaign dropped, I received an unexpected email from a boutique investment group that specialized in funding women-led design startups. They'd seen the Langro collaboration, They loved the brand story. They wanted to schedule a meeting. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, because this wasn't just a compliment. This was momentum. Tara and I spent the next few days reworking our deck. We brought in a freelance brand consultant to polish our positioning. I updated the website, added a press tab, uploaded our digital lookbook, and created a new slogan, tailored for women who outgrow expectations. It wasn't just a message, it was a declaration. At the pitch meeting, I sat across from two women who reminded me of future versions of myself. Sharp, stylish, and uninterested in pretense. "We love that you turned a personal rejection into a business advantage," one said, flipping through the campaign prints. "That's the kind of story people want to buy into." They offered me $500,000 in seed funding in exchange for a 10% equity stake. I said yes, on the spot, because while heartbreak had burned me to the ground, it also cleared the space for something stronger to grow. A few days later, I got a call from Langro's headquarters. They wanted to meet again. Only this time, Evelyn Morgan herself would be present. Victor warned me ahead of time. "She's not thrilled about the board's interest in you. She's trying to regain control of the brand's direction." I wasn't surprised. Evelyn had built her power on gatekeeping, deciding who was worthy and who was replaceable. And now I'd walked through the gate she thought she had welded shut. The boardroom was larger this time. Glossy mahogany table, 12 seats, 11 filled when I walked in. 10 men and Evelyn at the far end. She didn't stand. "Miss Lee," she said, without looking up from her tablet. I took a seat without waiting for an invitation. Victor kicked off the meeting with projections. 29% spike in engagement, triple the site traffic, surge in sample requests. "We're attributing that to the visual storytelling Jasmine brought to the table," he added. Evelyn raised a brow. "Langro provided the production." "Langro provided the fabric," I said calmly. "I built the garment." Her eyes met mine. "You've gotten bold." "No," I said. "You just finally have to see it." The conversation turned toward expansion. One of the board members floated the idea of launching a co-branded subline, Langro x Cala. It would put my name on tags carried in hundreds of stores, and it would put Evelyn in a corner. She said nothing at first, but I watched her jaw tighten. Finally, she leaned forward. "We'll consider the proposal, but I'll need to personally approve every piece before production." I smiled. "That's not how I work." The room went silent. "I appreciate what Langro's built," I continued, steady. "But if my name is going on anything, it won't be run through the same filter that almost cost me my career." Victor shifted. "We're not asking for compromise on vision, just structure." Evelyn cut him off. "There are plenty of designers we can promote." "And yet, you're all sitting here," I said, locking eyes with her, "because the one you overlooked is the one that saved your campaign." She said nothing. The room said nothing. But in that silence, I knew I'd won. Later that evening, as I walked out of the building, someone was waiting by the entrance. Adrian. His hands were in his pockets, face pale. "Can we talk?" I should have kept walking. I should have let him rot in the uncertainty of being ignored. But I didn't. I stood still. "You look good," he said. "You look like regret." He winced. "I didn't know she'd go that far." "You let her go that far. You didn't stop her. You didn't stop yourself." "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "No," I replied, stepping closer. "A mistake is forgetting a date. You built a future with me while planning one with someone else. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." He said nothing. So I walked away, and I didn't look back. The next day, I signed the co-branding contract. Cala by Jasmine Lee would be produced by Langro, but on my terms. All approval ran through me. All designs were mine. And the press? They weren't interested in Evelyn's opinions anymore. They wanted my name, my story, my voice, the one she tried to bury. The first Calla by Jasmine Lee capsule launched exactly 6 months after I left Adrian for good. 6 original looks, designed by me, produced through Langro's finest facilities. My name on every label, my words woven into every tag. You outgrew their expectations. Good. The launch wasn't flashy, but it was loud in all the right ways. Fashion insiders reposted the line with captions like, "Finally, something modern that doesn't pander." A reminder that rejection often births brilliance. "Who is Jasmine Lee? We're watching." Retailers called. Influencers requested press kits. Editors asked for interviews. And then, the phone call that left me speechless. Harper Style, one of the top fashion publications in the country, wanted to feature me in their New Faces of Power issue. "Not because you're new," the editor said over the phone, "but because you finally stepped out of the shadows." In the weeks that followed, I worked harder than I ever had. I restructured my team. Tara was promoted to Creative Operations Manager, and we brought on 2 new assistants. Our design studio moved out of its cramped backroom space and into a sun-filled loft in the Arts District. We installed a floor-to-ceiling quote wall with every belittling thing I'd ever been told. From Evelyn, from buyers who laughed me out of meetings, even from Adrian himself. And under each one, in bold stitching, "Thank you for the motivation." I wasn't building a fashion line anymore. I was building a legacy. The Harper Style shoot took place in a restored greenhouse. All glass, light, and growth. The photographer asked me to bring something personal, something symbolic. I wore the same silk blouse I had made for the day I met Adrian's mother, the one she'd ignored, dismissed, and told me was cute, not couture. This time it was on the cover. 2 weeks before the magazine hit newsstands, Langro hosted an invite-only runway preview to celebrate the new collaboration success. I wasn't required to attend. So naturally, I made sure I walked in, just as they introduced me as the lead designer. Victor greeted me with a knowing smile. "You've become the face of our rebrand." "Funny," I said, adjusting my earring. "I didn't need a new face. I just needed you to stop hiding mine." Evelyn was there, of course, front row, flanked by board members and press. When the models walked out wearing Calla, her expression was unreadable. But I watched her grip the armrest of her seat when the crowd erupted in applause after the finale. It was the same look she gave me the day she laughed in my store. Only this time, the laugh was gone. After the show, as guests sipped champagne and congratulated the team, I found myself face to face with her once again. "You've made quite a name for yourself," she said, cool as ice. "No," I replied. "You made a name for me when you tried to erase it." She looked me over. "You still don't belong in our world." "That's fine," I said, "because I'm building a new one." And I walked away. That night, Tara and I sat on the rooftop of our studio, eating Thai takeout and watching traffic stream across the 6th Street Bridge. "Do you ever think about him?" she asked softly. I didn't pretend not to know who she meant. "Yes," I said, "but not the way I used to." I thought about how much of myself I had silenced to make him comfortable. How many dreams I shrank to fit in the narrow space his family would allow. "He was a chapter," I added, "but not the ending." Tara grinned. "Well, the next chapter starts with front row seats at Paris Fashion Week." I almost dropped my noodles. "Wait, what?" "Email from this morning. You're officially on the guest list." I laughed. Not the polite kind, the real kind, the one I hadn't let out in months. "I guess that means we need new luggage," I said. A few days later, I received an anonymous package at the studio. Inside, a handwritten letter. "Jasmine, I saw the Harper cover. I couldn't stop looking at it. You look like everything I didn't fight hard enough to keep. I'm sorry. Adrian. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer I no longer opened, because some people belong in the past, and some names, they never get sewn into your story again. I stood backstage at Paris Fashion Week, just seconds before my first international show. The air buzzed with adrenaline. Models adjusting earrings, stylists making last-minute fixes, camera crews threading between racks. Everything shimmered under the high ceiling of the converted gallery space. But me? I stood still, wearing a floor-length ivory silk blazer dress, one I designed 6 years ago but never released. It was too personal back then, too hopeful. A design meant for a life that never came. Now it felt like armor. As the lights dimmed and the music pulsed through the floor, the first model stepped out. Calla by Jasmine Lee was opening the show. And not just any show, Langro's primetime Paris debut, built entirely around the rebrand they once tried to exclude me from. I watched my designs float down the runway. Confident silhouettes, structured but fluid, power stitched into every hemline. There was nothing soft about this collection, nothing timid. It didn't ask for approval, it declared presence. Halfway through, I noticed someone in the third row. Selena Ward. Perfectly composed, perfectly dressed, expression unreadable. She wasn't seated next to Adrian. In fact, Adrian wasn't there at all. I didn't let the thought linger. Because this moment, it wasn't about them. After the show, the applause was thunderous. People stood. Victor hugged me. The PR team cried. And Tara, somewhere in the back, was already uploading behind-the-scenes photos to our press channel. A reporter asked if I would say something. I stepped onto the center of the stage, took the mic, and spoke into a room full of industry royalty. When I first entered this industry, I began. I was told my background wasn't enough, that I was talented but not quite a fit, that my name didn't open doors. A pause. But I realized I didn't need their door. I could build my own. More applause. And now, I make sure it stays open for the next Jasmine Lee who's told she doesn't belong. The next morning, the headlines rolled in. Jasmine Lee dominates Paris with power and precision. The future of fashion has a new name, and it's Calla. How rejection built a global brand. My inbox exploded. New buyers, exhibition invites, collaboration requests. Langro's stock ticked upward. Their board scrambled to expand the Calla partnership. I didn't answer right away, because my name may have been everywhere now, but I was going to decide where it stayed. A few weeks later, back in LA, I visited my parents' house. They had set up a little Jasmine shrine in the living room. Framed magazine covers, articles, photos from the Paris runway. My mom hugged me like I had just graduated again. My dad grilled steaks in the backyard, still calling me kiddo like I hadn't just been on international television. It was the grounding I didn't know I needed. Because even when you rise, you need something steady beneath you. One morning, I returned to my studio and saw Tara pinning up a newspaper clipping on our quote wall. She smiled mischievously. I looked closer. It was a photo of Evelyn Morgan leaving a Langro board meeting. The headline, Langro's rebrand overshadowed by new power player Jasmine Lee. I laughed. You're evil. I'm accurate, she said, high-fiving me. A few days later, I was asked to speak at a panel on ethical leadership in fashion. I opened my talk with a single image projected behind me, the Calla logo stitched into the collar of a new uniform design. Sleek, minimal, unmistakable. I told them the truth. That once, I nearly gave up on fashion because someone with power told me I didn't deserve to belong. That love didn't save me. That revenge didn't either. What saved me was choosing myself. Not once, not dramatically, but every day. Every time I turned rejection into a runway. Every time I kept working when no one was clapping. Every time I stitched something honest, even if it scared me. And one quiet night, I sat alone in my office, lights low, sipping jasmine tea, listening to a playlist I'd abandoned long ago. I opened that drawer, the one with Adrian's letter. I read it again. The words hadn't changed, but I had. I took a pen and wrote across the top, "Thank you for letting me go. I built something better without you." Then I slipped it back in the drawer, not because I needed it, but because reminders are powerful. And forgiveness? Sometimes it's just choosing to stop bleeding for people who stabbed you. Today, I walk through my studio without shrinking. I sign contracts without flinching. I wear my name like a banner, not because they finally believe in me, but because I finally believed in myself first. They told me I didn't belong, so I designed the world I wanted to stand in. And now, they walk into my space.